Alright, what's up guys? It's me Shawn here for another Java tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to look at how to use a for loop in Java. So for the practice purpose I'll be using this really useful tool called Standard Array Traversal loop. Also enhanced for loop. So those two loops are used a lot of time in programming, and in the future we'll be using them a lot too, so you guys better know this. If you guys already know what these are, you're awesome, but if you still don't know what these are, don't worry, we're gonna learn it and become awesome too. So let's get to programming. Alright, so here as you can see I already wrote down my class. So from now on I'll be writing this class before I turn on the tutorial or filming the tutorial, because it does take a lot of time. But you guys have to make sure you guys try these out and then master it, like I said earlier. But it's pretty easy. So anyway, let's get into a for loop here. First thing we gotta do is we gotta create an array. So if you don't know what array is or how to create an array, please check out my previous video. I explained everything about what an array is and how to create them, so it'll be very useful. So anyway, if you already know, let's create an array and let's call it array, A-R-A, and let's store some values in, shall we? 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, and we're gonna use this new keyword called for in Java. So for loop here is used pretty much exactly same as the while loop. So if you guys don't know how to use while loop, and go ahead and check out my previous video, I explained everything about it. But pretty much same thing. So this parenthesis here is a condition, or the arguments, right? When it's gonna end, when it's gonna start and stuff. And this inside block here is where the magic happens, or where you're gonna tell the computer to do stuff. But there's a few different things though. So for loop, you will have 3 different conditions in this little parentheses area. So first spot for the argument is you have to give it a variable. So this right here is how to set values into a variable, right? So I'm setting 0 into a variable called an I. Why do I have to do that? Because the next item in my argument will determine how long I'll be using this for loop. So I'll be using this for loop when I is less than area.length. .length here is a method that was provided from Java to find out how many elements are in your array. So I notice I used the same name here, right? Because I wanted to find out the length of the array. And I less than array.length means as long as the I is less than, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Less than 5, it's gonna go into this block here and then do whatever it says, and over, right? But right now we have what? Infinite loop, right? Which is not good in programming. So what we gotta do here is we gotta make a third argument. And notice each argument I'm putting the semicolons, right? A lot of people put commas by accident, but don't ever do that. It will give you an error. So make sure you put these semicolons instead of commas, okay? I also made a lot of mistakes when I first learned this, so don't worry if you do, but just remember you use semicolons. So anyway, so the third part of this argument is where you increment this I. So the for loop can quit out eventually, right? So I++. So that's it. That's the basic structure of a standard for loop. So for when I equals 0, it's gonna start, right? And then it's gonna go into this for loop here, and it's gonna check. Hey, computer, is I less than array's length, which is 5 in this case? And it will say, yeah, it is. Then it's gonna go into this block, do whatever it says, and then kick back out to here where you increment the I++. So pretty much you do whatever is inside first and then it increments. So just remember that steps because it's very important to remember the logics and stuff. But anyway, enough talking about logics here. Let's do some experiment. So what we are going to do is we're going to print out the array, because remember what the title was? The title of this was? It was Standard Array Traversal Loop, and it's been used many times to go through all the array elements. So if you guys remember my previous video, you guys will remember that I put like literally 5 different lines so I could print them out onto screen, right? But instead of doing that, I could have just used this for loop here so I can use this thing over and over. So let me explain this right here. So what this for loop will do is it's gonna go in and then check whether I can actually proceed, and then it will. So it will go in here and it will print whatever I said here. So the item is blank, right? But notice I put area sub I. Wait, Shawn, what sub I means? Sub I here? I'm using the value that was made when for loop started. So you remember I created the variable called I, and right now when I first started, what does I have? I have 0, right? So what it's going to do is it's going to replace this I with 0 and then print that first position value, which is 1, right? But after this prints out, it's gonna increment the I by 1 and then it's gonna go back in here again. But now what? This I changes to 1, now you're going to print out the second one. So that's pretty much the basic logic behind this whole thing here. So let me run this and see if it works. And there it is. It's very clean and neat, right? I didn't have to write 5 different lines and save a bunch of time. So if you had like millions of items in your array, would you rather write millions of code or million lines of code, or just 3 lines of for loop? And for loop is very useful throughout the programming course, so just remember this, and this is called Standard Array Traversal for loop. Okay, so now we looked at Standard Array Traversal loop. We're going to look at another thing called a enhanced for loop. Okay, what is that? It's exactly same thing as what we just did here. The purpose of it is to go through a listings and stuff, and usually with arrays it's been used a lot because it's very useful, and it's shorter than this. Really, it's very cool. So let's go over that. So basic setup here, right? For blah blah blah. Okay, but you remember how we had 3 different conditions for the standard loop? This time we're going to have 2, and it will look a little bit different, so follow me along here. So first thing we have to do is we have to create a copy. So let's create an integer copy because it's gonna have integer values, and after that you have to put this 2 dot signs. Okay, so you can access this by pressing shift and semicolon, then you're gonna get this 2 dot equal sign thing. After that you are going to put your array name, which was array, so let's put array there, and that's it. That's the whole argument. After that we're gonna do exact same thing here. So let me copy that real quick. Oops, let me copy that here, and I gotta change that little spot because now I'm not gonna use this I value. Instead I'm going to use this copy value. Copy. So let me explain this real quick before I even go into this. So this for loop is called enhanced for loop, and what it's going to do is it's going to go in first, right? It's going to go into the for loop, and it's going to go into this list on the right side. Make sure you put the listing on the right side. So what it's going to do is it's going to go into my list here and look at my value. So notice my first value is 1, isn't it? So what the computer or what the Java will do is Java will take this 1 and then put that value into a copy position. Whoa, right, it's like copying the number scanner, or yeah, scanning stuff. So now my copy has that value. So when I go into this for loop here, notice I'm gonna print this out with this copy. And what does copy have? It has 1, isn't it? Because that was the first time going through. And once you finish this, it's gonna go back here. The second time it goes through, it won't look at the first element. Instead, it will look at the second element, which is 2. So now when you print this out again, copy will have value of 2, so you can print out the next statement. Alright, but when will this end? It doesn't have that ending structure like what we had earlier, right? But cool thing about this enhanced for loop is that it knows when to end. So when this array hits the empty area, so after 5 it's not going to have any other values. So what it's going to do is it's going to drop out of this for loop and quit out. So it's very, very useful. So let me run it and see if it works here. And there it is. The item is 1. Exact same stuff from previous one, but very little bit less code that we did. But what do I recommend? Okay, so there are 2 different ways to print out the array, right? But I recommend you guys to use this standard array traversal loop, because this enhanced for loop here, it's very, very useful for reading in the value and printing out to the screen. But when we get into setting the value and changing the value, this thing becomes garbage pretty much, because we can't really do anything with this copy here. Even we change the copy, it won't change the actual value, so it'll be useless when you try to change the values. But if you're just trying to print out the values, enhanced for loop is the way to go. But most of the time you will be using this standard for loop. Okay, so yeah, that's it for how to use for loop in Java. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you guys liked it, please hit subscribe and hit like, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.